when the law becomes a question. In sports, every decision made by the referee is law, until that very law becomes a question mark. And on an exciting afternoon at the WTA tournament in Hong Kong, one small call became a symbol of a larger issue. When fairness is no longer a given, but something that must be fought for. Alex Eala, 19, from the Philippines, was leading the points against Victoria Mboko, a young competitor from Canada. The match was tense, but fair. Until a sudden moment. Mboko was about to serve when noise erupted from the stands. She stopped. The umpire stepped in and announced that Mboko was allowed to take a first serve retake. In tennis, once you have committed to the serve, regardless of the outcome, it is an official shot. But this time, because of the noise? Because of the crowd? Or for some reason not explicitly stated in the public rules? No one was sure. Only one thing was certain. Alex had just lost the advantage she deserved. The cameras did not capture a close-up reaction. But there was a moment when Alex turned her face toward the umpire's chair, brows furrowed, then turned back to the baseline. No protest, no complaint, but her posture was rigid. The next point, she missed her shot. And from there, the momentum shifted. No one said the call was wrong, but a flood of comments poured in. What rule is this? Why no replay? What basis did the umpire use to allow a retake? No one answered. No one took responsibility. And in that silence, Alex had to continue playing, alone, against not just her opponent, but a system lacking transparency. Sport teaches us to accept defeat. But does anyone teach us to accept an ambiguous loss? Because if you believe in the spirit of sport as fairness, as transparency, as respect, then this moment, and what it represents, is worth pausing to think about. And if you want to follow sports stories that revolve not just around the score, but around the people, the system, and the choices, subscribe to Pro Tennis 360. Because sometimes, the most worthwhile thing to watch is not on the scoreboard, but in the decisions that are never revisited. One call, one shift in momentum. The moment the umpire made the decision to grant Victoria Mboko a service retake, the atmosphere on the court immediately changed. It wasn't loud, not chaotic, but the silence after the announcement was heavy. Alex Eala had just gained a clear advantage. A missed serve, a distracting audience, the point was hers. But then instead of moving forward, she had to stand still, watching her opponent be granted a second chance, not due to skill or clear rules, but because of a sense of fairness from one single person, the umpire. Before that, the match was a balanced display. Alex played with her usual cool composure. Long rallies, fierce inside-out forehands, and near-flawless movement. The crowd supported her, especially as she was playing in Asia. People saw a reflection of her US Open image, but more mature, stronger. Mboko wasn't easily subdued, but the momentum largely favored Alex. Until that moment, the situation seemed minor. But anyone following professional sports knows. Calls like that are like slightly wrenching the steering wheel of a car speeding down the highway. Not much deviation, but enough to prevent reaching the destination as planned. After the retake, Mboko scored with an ace. The score leveled. And from there, the momentum was no longer Alex's. The camera caught a moment where Alex stood silent, gripping her racket tighter than usual. No protest. But her eyes were different. The eyes of someone who had just realized she wouldn't be protected, even when she was right. It wasn't that the umpire intentionally made a mistake, but the system allows subjectivity to exist and doesn't grant the athlete the right to ask, why? In the stands, fans began to whisper. Online, the clip spread. But on the court, only one person bore the consequence, Alex. And the saddest thing? No one stopped the match to ensure fairness for her. Only she continuing to play, with an invisible crack that had started to deepen from that moment. The silent reaction and the unanswered questions. When the umpire made the controversial ruling, there were no boos. But discomfort spread like an undercurrent. On social media, the clip cut from the live stream began to circulate with a simple caption, "He just gave her the serve back?" The first account to share the video was an Asian tennis fan page. In just 2 hours, the clip received over 80,000 views, drawing hundreds of comments from amateur players and former athletes alike. Some attempted to cite the rules. Others directly questioned, is the umpire showing favoritism towards Mboko? The remarkable thing was the lack of any official comment from the organizers or the head referee after the match. All responses were silent. Alex also posted nothing. No story, no post, no hint. She left the court immediately after the match concluded, heading straight to the locker room, without interviews. The only image after the match was a photo of her walking out with her head bowed, racket bag slung over her shoulder, and a caption from a photojournalist. Not defeated, just disappointed. The incident seemed destined to fade as a technical error. But when the community began comparing it to previous cases, where many young athletes from smaller nations had seemingly been unfairly treated in mid-tier tournaments, a larger narrative began to form. Does implicit bias exist within the WTA system? No one said it outright, but phrases like institutional bias and selective officiating began appearing on the Twitter feeds of experts. Alex is not a superstar player. She doesn't have major backers. She comes from a country without a Grand Slam champion. And in the world of sports, where fame is linked to media contracts, rank sometimes doesn't determine power as much as nationality. This was no longer just the story of a service retake, but how a system handles those who don't have a loud voice. And the silence from the organizers after the incident was the clearest voice of all. Victories not counted on the scoreboard. After the match, Victoria Mboko gave a brief interview. She didn't mention the service retake, only speaking generally. We both played our best. I have great respect for Alex. A proper response. Exactly according to WTA format requirements. No drama. But what the audience wanted to hear was left unsaid. And the question Alex wanted to ask, she was not allowed to voice. A day later, the WTA officially published a result, posting a photo of Victoria and making no mention of any controversy. Alex fan pages began to react. They didn't attack Mboko. They didn't demand the point be replayed. They only demanded one thing, an explanation. A prominent sports lawyer from Europe posted a short analysis. The ITF rulebook, section 20.1, does not specifically stipulate replaying the serve due to crowd noise after the serve has been executed, unless there is a technical fault. The question was repeated. What clause did the umpire base the decision on? No one answered. The media began to take notice. But because the tournament was not part of the Grand Slam series, many major news outlets did not cover it officially. The story thus continued to spread through unofficial channels, Reddit, Twitter, and independent sports analysis podcasts. In a tennis podcast released 2 days later, a former WTA umpire stated frankly, "I would never have made that kind of call unless there was a serious malfunction." But then he concluded with a haunting sentence. Sometimes, young players from less powerful federations don't get the same benefit of the doubt. No one said Alex was unfairly treated, but everyone implicitly understood something was off. And then, amidst the wave of controversy, Alex posted a single story. An image of her racket placed on a chair, no caption. That's all. But it was enough for fans to understand. She was still there, still practicing, still continuing. Sometimes, in sports, what you gain is not a title. It's recognition. And that's what Alex was fighting to reclaim, even though the scoreboard was closed. Small court, huge pressure, even bigger system. The Hong Kong tournament was not a major event. No Federer, no Serena, no 3D LED screens around the court or lavish trophy ceremony. But it is precisely in these places that the system reveals its greatest weakness. Lack of transparency, lack of supervision, and lack of accountability. Alex played on court 2, a side court, with only a few hundred spectators. No Hawkeye system, no VAR support. Decisions rely entirely on human perception. And because of this, one mistake, even if unintentional, can affect an entire season, even the entire career of a young player. Behind the scenes, many athletes spoke out anonymously. One shared with a local sports channel. The umpire once gave me a replay because the cicadas were too loud. But another time, when my opponent was affected by a camera flash, I got nothing. Inconsistency is not new. But when it happens to a young player, without a big name to protect her, the consequence is not just a loss. It's the loss of trust. Alex was no stranger to disadvantage. Since her junior days, she often had to play during the earliest time slots on the worst courts, without live streaming. But she never complained. Instead, she once posted a viral quote, "I'll earn my camera angle." And perhaps that is what made the Hong Kong situation even more infuriating. Because she wasn't asking for privilege. She was asking for fairness. And she didn't get it, even when she was leading the score, even when she controlled the momentum. The professional sports system always talks about fair play. But fairness is not in the slogan. It's in every small decision. And when a young player is deprived of an advantage without anyone explaining why, that slogan becomes just an empty hashtag. The media gap and the toxic narratives. Throughout the first 48 hours after the incident, major media channels maintained complete silence. ESPN did not mention it. Neither did Tennis Channel. Even when the clip on Twitter had reached over 1 million views, sports journalists looked away. The reason is simple. Hong Kong 250 is not a cash cow event. It doesn't bring massive traffic. It doesn't have A-list stars. In the eyes of many media outlets, it was a non-story. And that is precisely the loophole. Because it wasn't hot enough. It was overlooked because the numbers weren't big enough. A young athlete was put in a questionable situation, and an entire news system turned a blind eye. Secondary tennis fan channels began to speak up. A tennis YouTuber in Japan analyzed Rule 20.1 and pointed out, the umpire was wrong to allow the retake. Eala defenders on Twitter argued, if this happened to Swiatek or Goff, would the WTA remain silent? It was the media gap that allowed the discussion space to be taken over by baseless theories. Someone posted that Mboko was the WTA starling. Others said the chosen umpire had ties to a sponsoring partner. And while Eala remained silent and continued to compete, the flow of rumors continued to explode. A simple story that could have been resolved with one brief statement was now escalated to the level of toxic information. When fairness is not a rule, but a leverage. Fairness is sometimes not simply about getting a point back or replaying a set. It's the feeling that one is being listened to, that when the truth happens, someone will take notice. And the unfortunate thing in this case is no one wanted to look. The organizers were silent. The mainstream media was absent. The audience was fragmented. In a system that claims to honor transparency, transparency became a luxury. Alex did not speak up not because she was timid, but because she understood. In a playing field not built for the small, speaking too soon can turn one into a scapegoat. And it was that very silence that made the story more dangerous. Without official information, the public will construct its own narratives. Each person becomes their own investigator, their own judge, their own jury. In that context, Eala continued to compete. On the court, she still ran, still served, still won points. But in every shot, there was an added burden, having to prove that she was trustworthy, that she was not involved, that she was not overreacting, while her opponents only needed to play. Sport is a fair arena only when the rules are applied equally to everyone. When power interferes with scoring, when nationality dictates the spotlight, when the inside of the court has to play by the rules of the outside, that is no longer competition. The long-term consequences of the service retake. The incident, which seemed to be confined to one service retake moment between an umpire and an athlete, led to unexpected repercussions. Independent media channels began tracking similar precedents at minor tournaments and realized controversial calls have a higher incidence rate in matches without technological support systems, like Hawkeye, or when the athlete is not accompanied by a media representative. Even more notably, the majority of victims in these erroneous calls came from countries outside the tennis power group, places with less voice on the WTA board or less leverage in negotiating match schedules and court assignments. A quick study by the Tennis Data Watch site showed In 24 hotspot situations analyzed in the last 3 seasons, 17 cases of disadvantage lean toward players from Asia, Africa, and Eastern Europe. Alex is just a visible example. Because she is famous, hundreds of other athletes, deviations came and went as if they never occurred. This forced the governing body to react. The WTA issued an official announcement. It would increase supervision of lower-level tournaments and introduce a new complaint procedure for young athletes. Some newspapers described this move as firefighting to save face. But for many athletes, it was the first time they heard from those in power. And while the entire tennis world remained divided over the right and wrong of the Hong Kong situation, Alex continued to train for the next tournament. A video secretly recorded by a fan showed her practicing her serve, repeating the exact motion that caused controversy that day, as a way to reclaim control. In the faint sunlight, on an empty practice court, a 20-year-old girl was reclaiming something someone had taken from her, not just the ball, but her voice. The long-term consequences of the service retake. The incident, which seemed to be confined to one service retake moment between an umpire and an athlete, led to unexpected repercussions. Independent media channels began tracking similar precedents at minor tournaments and realized controversial calls have a higher incidence rate in matches without technological support systems, like Hawkeye, or when the athlete is not accompanied by a media representative. Even more notably, the majority of victims in these erroneous calls came from countries outside the tennis power group, places with less voice on the WTA board or less leverage in negotiating match schedules and court assignments. A quick study by the Tennis Data Watch site showed, in 24 hotspot situations analyzed in the last 3 seasons, 17 cases of disadvantage lean toward players from Asia, Africa, and Eastern Europe. Alex is just a visible example. Because she is famous, hundreds of other athletes, deviations came and went as if they never occurred. This forced the governing body to react. The WTA issued an official announcement. It would increase supervision of lower-level tournaments and introduce a new complaint procedure for young athletes. Some newspapers described this move as firefighting to save face. But for many athletes, it was the first time they heard from those in power. And while the entire tennis world remained divided over the right and wrong of the Hong Kong situation, Alex continued to train for the next tournament. A video secretly recorded by a fan showed her practicing her serve, repeating the exact motion that caused controversy that day, as a way to reclaim control. In the faint sunlight, on an empty practice court, a 20-year-old girl was reclaiming something someone had taken from her, not just the ball, but her voice. Overcoming the storm. Today's Alex. After the Hong Kong scandal, many predicted Alex would take a break from competition, or at least maintain silence. But she didn't choose the easy path. No press release, no exclusive interview. Only her presence, on time, strong enough, and unafraid, at the next tournament in Tokyo. The media wasn't invited, but they came anyway. Since the incident, Alex was no longer just a young player. She became a symbol of something bigger. Silence has weight. And the way she confronted public opinion, no denial, no tears, and no anger, made the world start looking at her with different eyes. A veteran writer for Sports Illustrated wrote, "If Eala wins Tokyo, it won't just be a victory on court. It'll be a win over every system that tried to shrink her voice." In the press conference after her first win, people expected a rebuttal. But Alex only said, "I just want to play, and play right." The sentence was short, but it created a silence. Because everyone understood, she was no longer the one who needed to speak up. She was living proof that one doesn't always have to scream to be heard. Fans began calling her the ice pulse, a pulse that is steady, stable, and unpredictable. From someone once called lacking personality, Alex is now the most watched player in Asia. But one thing hasn't changed. She still practices alone after every match. No showmanship, no entourage. Just the racket, the ball, and the silence that has been tempered into resilience. Because in the end, the real match doesn't just happen on the court. It happens in the way you get up after being hurt and still look straight at your opponent, as if you were never afraid. when a serve becomes a silent declaration of war. Alex Eala did not smash a racket, did not cry out, did not demand a video replay or a reversal of the Hong Kong match. She simply continued to compete. And that continuation, that cold-blooded persistence, created a wave that spread wider than any tweet. A small action, not giving up, became a declaration. In a world where people always expect you to react strongly, sometimes calmness is the fiercest form of resistance. Experts began to see her differently, no longer calling her the rising star, but the player who had overcome the most difficult phase of a young career. The phase where you are misunderstood, doubted, belittled, but still choose to stand firm. But one thing remains undeciphered. Why did the umpire make that call? And why did no one object? Public opinion is still divided, with numerous theories from crowd pressure to internal politics within the organizing committee. But perhaps Alex understands that the answer sometimes never comes, and not everyone is brave enough to live without it. Therefore, when she returned to the court after the incident, still with that same serve, still with her eyes fixed on the net, it was not just an opening shot. It was a reminder that, I'm still here, and I won't leave just because you want me to. We cannot change that match, but we can change how it is remembered, not as a technical loss, but as a moment a young player turned loss into fire and used it to light a new path for herself. What do you think of Alex's silence? Is it weakness or another form of strength? Leave your comments below and subscribe to Pro Tennis 360 to continue following the untold stories of athletes who dare to face injustice, not with words, but with every shot.